Good morning, fellow Americans. Good morning, patriots. And good morning, fellow Upper St. Clair residents and visitors. We are absolutely delighted that you are here. We have been blessed this morning with no rain and mild temperatures, so it's great. Freedom, the human heart yearns for it. Men and women have given their lives to win it and preserve it. For over 250 years, America has been winning freedom from the time of our founders, and they have declared that this is a free land. The saying, freedom isn't free, is very accurate, and it says it all. And once you have that freedom, you need to provide constant vigilance so that you don't lose it. The price of freedom is paid through the dedication and will of fellow Americans who value freedom so highly that they are willing to pay the ultimate price to guarantee that we remain free people and that we are free to gather as we are gathering right now to thank our veterans. So who are these people who so willingly put their lives on the line so that we can enjoy this precious gift? We know them as veterans, men and women who have fulfilled their pledge to protect our way of life. It is fitting that the citizens of Upper St. Clair have built this park to honor and remember their veterans. It is fitting that we return to this park every year on this day. It is fitting that we remember ourselves the price that freedom comes with. And it is fitting that we gather again today to thank our veterans for their service and for their sacrifice. So as we gather in this place today, and as we say to ourselves, as we hear the band coming down the road from the high school, and the chills go up our back when we hear them play, it is fitting that we say to ourselves, this is America, and that we have this opportunity to thank those veterans, those people whose service, and some of them are here today, some of them aren't. And we remember, and we still hear the echo of their service over the hills and valleys of this great land. So we today are blessed with the presence of our high school people. We're blessed with the presence of younger people, and there were two reasons that this park was built. The first was to remember all the veterans who have served throughout that 250 years. Our township was chartered in 1788. A lot of our people have paid a high price for us to stand here today. And the second reason was that we wanted to to imbue our young people with a feeling of patriotism and a feeling of thankfulness for our veterans. So that's what we're doing today. Thanks for coming, and we're going to get on with the program. I'd like to introduce to you a homegrown Upper St. Clair gal, Pastor Louise Rogers, who is the pastor at Westminster Presbyterian Church, and she will lead us in our invocation.
Thank you, and good morning. Would you please join me now for our invocation, a time of prayer? Let us pray. Almighty and ever-living God, we give you thanks for the men and women who have served and defended our country and the values of freedom and justice we hold. We give you thanks, Lord, for all those who have shown the greatest love by laying down their lives for others. And we especially thank you for those in our military throughout history who have sacrificed their lives for their fellow citizens and for us who came after. And as we remember their service, keep us mindful of all those for whom this day is a burden, and send your spirit of comfort to them. Lord, be present with all the men and women who are serving in the military today. Bless the veterans who defend our country with strength and selfless devotion, wherever they are stationed and serving. Let them live for the peace known only from you. We live with appreciation for the freedom preserved, future defended, and the ideals embodied by our veterans. Help us to be worthy of their legacy and keep us mindful of their service, that in all things we may live our lives in praise and thanksgiving to you. And this we pray, dear Lord, through Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you, Louise. I'd like to introduce at this time the Upper St. Clair Marching Band. These kids gave up their day off, and they are with us as they have been. By the way, this is the 9th anniversary of the dedication of this park on November 11th in the year 2011. And I can see our police are with us too. So Dawn, thank you for this selection of America on Parade.
One.
Thank you, Dawn, and thank you, band members. We get to do something now that should be very important to all of us. We get to say the Pledge of Allegiance, and we get to sing our national anthem. And I'd like to think that today, on this day, that we do it with special meaning in our hearts, that our voices will recite the pledge with some volume that maybe we don't, and also they will sing the national anthem in a way that they can hear it in Bethel Park. So in order to lead us in the pledge, we've asked Chief/Commissioner/Resident Ron Pardini. Come up here, Ron. Ron has served 45 years in this community as police chief, and started out as a patrolman, and he has served the last 6 years since his retirement as a commissioner. So, Ron Pardini.
Thank you, Mr. Morris. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I don't know if everyone noticed, but as we sing the national anthem and salute the flag, in the background we have the statue that was dedicated 3 years ago today of a young Upper St. Clair lad who realizes that after going through all the service plazas, he realizes the sacrifice that was made by a lot of people. And he stands there, he puts his ball cap in his back pocket, and he has his hat off and he salutes the flag. Pretty moving. So there it is. You can see him. He salutes day and night. At this time, I'd like to recognize some of the people who represent our community, our county, and our state, and our country. And without their support and their dedication, again, we wouldn't be able to do what we're doing this morning. So this is always a dangerous thing to recognize people, because you don't want to let anybody out. But we'll try to get it done. If I could find the paper. Here it is. Okay. First of all, I'd like to recognize the Upper St. Clair Board of Commissioners, and we have many of them with us today. We have the President, Mark Christie, In the back there, I see Bob Warchowski, recently reelected. You just met Ron Pardini, former Commissioner Russ Del Rey, newly reelected Rex Waller. Any other commissioners here? Dan Paoli over back there. Thanks, Dan. Thanks for coming. The USC school directors, if you'd put your hands up. I know a bunch of you are here. We thank you for all your support. We thank certainly Matt Sarakowski and Laura Long. Matt Matt is the head of the township staff administration, and Laura is his assistant. And we have John Rizzo, Rozzi, I'm sorry, and Marianne Stabile and Sarah McDonald. Mark Mansfield. Mark, I know you're over here somewhere. There he is. So we thank you for coming. State Rep Natalie Mahalik with her little girl. There's Natalie. Thank you. We have behind me Rich Fitzgerald, and we thank him. How many celebrations are you going to attend today, Rich? Well, we really, really appreciate your presence in Upper St. Clair. County representative who is retiring, Sue Means, over here. And Congressman Mike Doyle has sent his military attaché, Nick DiMichele. Nick, thank you for coming. All right, the Honorable Ron Arnone, who helps so many of our children and helps us keep everybody in order in our communities here. Ron, thank you. I think we covered all of them. If I left you out, you can come up and smack me later or whatever, but we didn't mean to, that's for sure. So we're going to continue. I'd like to introduce to you the Upper St. Clair Chanticleers and their director, Lorraine Milovec, and they are doing America the Beautiful.
We remember those who were called upon to give all a person can give. And we remember those who were prepared to make that sacrifice if it were demanded of them in the line of duty, though it never was. Most of all, we remember the devotion and gallantry with which all of them ennobled their nation as they became champions of a noble cause. Ronald Reagan.
From every mountainside, let freedom ring.
Thank you very much, Chanticleers, and thank you, Lorraine. the next thing we're going to do is probably the most important thing that we're going to do all day, and that's to recognize our veterans. So would the veterans start to come forward? And a lot of times we don't have any Coast Guard with us, but if you're Coast Guard, represent Coast Guard, would you come forward and put your hand up? Wow, that's great. Fantastic. Their service plaza is one of the far ones over there. And by the way, if you haven't gone through the service plazas, it's something you need to do. So Coast Guard, put your hands up again. Okay, we got one. All right, next let's do the Army. Air Force. How about the Navy? Somebody had a birthday yesterday. Who was it? Okay, how many years?
244.
244 years. And yesterday was their birthday. So that's, by the way, that's the Marines. Are there any merchant Marines here? Because we owe a lot to them. If you've read anything about World War I and World War II, they paid a heavy price, moving troops and goods and supplies. So we're so happy that you have come forward today. We're so happy that because this day is for you, that your community and all your neighbors and all these officials, they've come here to say thank you, that you put your lives on hold, and that each one of you probably had buddies who didn't make it, and so we know what the price you've paid, and we just say thank you, thank you, thank you for your service. That's why we're here, to say thank you to you. One more round of applause to these men.
We are so honored today to have Dr. Sam Hazo, who is an Upper St. Clair resident, a captain in the Marine Corps, founder and director of the International Poetry Forum, and Pennsylvania's state poet. Dr. Hazo will read two very fitting poems. The first is called At the Site of the Memorial, and the words to this poem are engraved in Harrisburg at the Medal of Honor, Congressional Medal of Honor Park. The second poem is No Words for This. Following the spoken poems, the men of the Chanticleers will sing a World War I poem that has been set to music in Flanders Field. Dr. Hazo.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and members of the Armed Forces. And ladies and gentlemen, I've been asked to say two poems. Can you hear me, by the way? And before I do, I have to tell you that I have to make some prefatory remarks that relate to both of them, because they both have to deal with the sense of loss that we all feel, especially today, on those who are for those who are no longer with us. The point that I would like to make to begin with is that for the past 69 years, since 1950, every war in which we have been involved has been by a presidential choice. The Congress was completely bypassed, overlooked, and not consulted. The results of this were not impressive. Korea ended in a stalemate, and a peace treaty between the two Koreas after 69 years has yet to happen. Vietnam was a tragedy and an evacuation. And what is happening in the Middle East today can only get worse. What is devastating about this, and which deepens our sense of loss, in my opinion, is the fact that since 1950, almost 83,000 members of the armed services, men and women, have died. Over 350,000 have been bodily wounded. The numbers of those who have been psychologically wounded is uncountable. That's enough to make you think. But what is even more devastating to realize, and I just checked on this morning, is that the number of suicides of veterans of those wars now averages 22 per day. 22 per day. I didn't feel this until I watched a documentary in which a number of mothers and wives and sisters of men who had been killed in action were interviewed. And they interviewed one particular mother who said something that I will never forget and that prompted this particular poem. It's called No Words for This. If a true poem is one you wished you never had to write, then this is it. Don't read it just to say you read it. That's like the traveler who went to Spain, so he could say he went to Spain. The words I've picked have really picked themselves, but what's not here is where the poem breathes. The mother of a captain killed by snipers read his final letter, postmarked on the day he died. She read it often after that. Each time she closed the envelope, she slowly licked it shut so that her tongue could taste him in the last thing he ever touched. This next poem has a brief history, and I'll make it even briefer. That Governor Casey asked me if I would write a poem that could be placed at the memorial for the Pennsylvanians who have received the Congressional Medal of Honor. There, by the way, there are over 373. There's no state except New York that has a greater number of winners or awardees of the Congressional Medal of Honor. I told the governor I declined. And he said, why? And I said, well, writing a poem is like, on demand, is like a forced marriage. It doesn't work. And I said, if you would understand that, I'd appreciate it. And he said, I do understand it. But he said, let me give you some materials. And he gave me some materials about the winners of the Congressional Medal of Honor from Pennsylvania recently. At that time, there were about 5 still living. And I read these reports, and I found that these men were as ordinary as we are. It's just that on one particular occasion, they did something that was remarkable. Some of them lost their lives doing it. And it sent me to read the credentials for the Congressional Medal of Honor. There are 3 credentials. 1, it has to be a heroic act. Secondly, it has to be a heroic act done for somebody else, for somebody else's sake. And thirdly, and most importantly, if you didn't do it, nobody would blame you. If you didn't throw yourself on a grenade to save your buddies, nobody would blame you. It's an interesting distinction. So in that spirit, I'd like to say a final poem. And this is the one that's engraved in Harrisburg. Governor Casey promised me he would do that, and he did, but he didn't live to see it. So this poem is also for Governor Casey. No soldiers choose to die. It's what they risk by being who and where they are. It's what they dare when saving someone else whose life means suddenly as much to them as theirs, or more. To honor them, why speak of duty or the will of governments? Think first of love each time you tell their story. It gives their sacrifice a name and takes from war its glory. Thank you.
Take up our quarrel with the foe. To you from failing hands we throw. The torch be yours to hold it high. If ye break faith with us who die, we shall not sleep though poppies grow. In Flanders fields we shall not sleep though poppies grow. In Flanders fields.
I'd now like to introduce the newest member of the Vets Observance Committee. You all know, I'm sure, or have heard of Brian Schill. He's an Upper St. Clair resident. He's a retired lieutenant colonel in the Air Force. He was a pilot in the 71st Refueling Wing out at the airport. Brian has a rich history as a resident of participating and giving of his time and his talents in this community, and we're very pleased to have him to help do this observance in the future. And Brian is going to introduce our featured speaker, Kyle Pernay.
Thanks, Jed. Kyle Pernay is a former Marine Corps officer who held various leadership roles, serving with combat distinction. Notable missions include being hand-selected to conduct joint raids on known terrorist compounds with U.S. and Spanish special forces, securing key terrain in Baghdad, securing critical infrastructure around Iraq, and numerous operations against Muqtada al-Sadr and the Mahdi army. In conjunction to his combat leadership roles, Mr. Pernay had the responsibility of leading a classified mission ordered by General James Mattis, security officer duties for Ambassador Paul Bremer, and training Iraqi forces. He also played a leadership role in helping to frame, coordinate, and provide security for the first democratic elections in Iraq's history. And something else you might not know about Mr. Pernay: he is also the photographer behind the new famous photo of the Marines forming 9/11 We Remember in Iraq. If you don't remember that, Google it. It's a pretty cool photo. Mr. Pernay lives with his wife and 4 children here in Upper St. Clair. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Kyle Pernay.
Good morning. I'd like to start out this morning by asking you a very serious question. What cause is so dear to you that you're willing to give up your life for it? Freedom. I figured that would come from this side of the house. Thank you. We are here today to honor the people who answered this question, not only with words, but with actions. And the answer is simple. Your freedom and individual liberty is so important that they're willing to give it all for people they don't even know for you to chase your dreams. John F. Kennedy said, in the long history of the world, only a few generations have been granted the role of defending freedom in its maximum hour of danger. I do not shrink from this responsibility. I welcome it. There's a sharp contrast between being in the military and working a civilian job, as I'm sure many of you know. We enjoy an all-volunteer force currently, which is a good thing. But an all-volunteer force widens the divide between those who have served and those who have not. This chasm between civilian and military worlds can be hard to fully comprehend. The gravity of service and the risks of joining are a deterrent for many. But today we celebrate the veterans who are willing to set aside, perhaps permanently, their comfort, their families, their physical and their mental and their emotional health to serve this great nation. It is difficult for me to explain to you what this type of selflessness is all about. Somewhere, a veteran has stepped in and carried your share of the burden. We honor veterans today for the commitment and sacrifice. To honor is to regard or treat someone with admiration and respect, and to give special recognition. While we can recognize the cost of service, we also need to recognize the benefits from military training and service. The experience and knowledge gained is invaluable. When we truly value what they have come to gain and revere the character that is built under such traumatic conditions, we will truly show honor to our veterans. When I joined the Marines, I knew the tagline was "The change is forever." I'll be honest, I really didn't realize how serious that is. It is very meaningful. It is so much more than a tagline. The changes in my life have been so dramatic and permanent, it is impossible for me to unlearn. The lessons I learned in the Marine Corps are so applicable to my life and my career, I could not unapply them even if I wanted to. My wife loves the phrase, you can't unring a bell. And I've definitely found that to be the case here. So I'd like to share with you a few things to understand where she's coming from. Marine Corps policy demands that all Marines go through the same basic training prior to attending their specialized training or their MOS. There's great importance in this practice. For starters, all the ways your individuality exists and serves you as a civilian are graciously removed from you. Camaraderie grows out of shared experience, often under harrowing conditions. Petty differences disappear and unity becomes a priority. The strength of the bond within the unit often determines success or failure. In every situation, in every training exercise, you train to become a cohesive unit. You gain respect for one another. I'm not suggesting that the training or bonding is pleasant. In fact, it's often not. Being stripped of selfishness hurts, and it hurts a lot. But it teaches us to think of the mission first and others before ourselves. This is a harsh contrast to the general thinking of the civilian world, where we look at ourselves and our own priorities as the center of existence. In the military, your priorities are reordered for you. Military leaders understand that while this hurts now, it will save you later. The obstacles and training exercises can only be accomplished when you succeed as a unit, and they are strenuous and exhausting. When you have to carry things, they are heavy. When you have to walk, you walk far. I'll give you an example. When we were in Kuwait, waiting for the order to overthrow Saddam Hussein's regime, we did a patrolling exercise where we hiked very far, carried the heaviest packs we could possibly pack, and we applied gas masks to ensure that our breathing was properly restricted while we were digging holes into rock-hard earth, just to ensure that we were completely exhausted before returning to camp. When we returned, we would come to realize the order had been given, and we would prep for combat in a state of complete exhaustion. Looking back, our unit was physically, mentally, and emotionally hardened in an elite way that in only days we would realize how valuable it was. Why? Why is this level of suck so vital to our training? Because you must become accustomed to dealing with the worst situations and still be 100% effective at accomplishing the mission. You learn to improvise, adapt, and overcome. You learn to become comfortable in extremely uncomfortable situations. Circumstances may alter the way you approach a mission, but they cannot and must not hinder your success. Grit is essential. Difficulty can help you develop your character, persistence, and become resilient. If I were to summarize the minimum prerequisites to Marine Corps success that translate well into the civilian world, I would say, know your doctrine cold. Be disciplined and selfless. Get comfortable being very uncomfortable. Prepare yourself and your subordinates like you know the crash is imminent, not a possibility. Be decisive. Zero excuses for any reason ever. Be accountable, courageous, and punctual. Take pride in your country, your unit, and yourself. The service members we honor today came from all walks of life, but they shared several fundamental qualities. They possessed courage, pride, determination, selflessness, dedication to duty, and integrity. They rose to the nation's call because they wanted to protect a nation which has given them so much. Statistically speaking, our veterans have done what 99% of our citizens cannot or will not do. Each and every American veteran has played a significant role in shaping our country. I'd like to have a moment of silence for those who paid the ultimate sacrifice for our nation. Thank you. John 15:13 tells us, greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. To this I say amen and semper fidelis. Once again, I'd like to ask that we recognize all veterans and service members, as we cannot thank them enough. Thank you. I'd also like to ask that we recognize, perhaps by a show of hands, the family members who do the hard duty of holding down the home front while their loved ones are forward deployed and in harm's way. Any family members, please raise your hands. Be recognized. Thank you. Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius said, your days are numbered. Use them to throw open the windows of your soul to the sun. If you do not, the sun will soon set, and you with it. How better can we open our souls than to serve a cause greater than ourselves? Do not let the sun set on you while you are focused on yourself. Millions of Americans have fought and died on battlefields in defense of freedom. Monuments cannot replace the hole left behind. No medals or ribbons can comfort their loved ones. I have felt the pain of loss and the very real ongoing struggle so many are dealing with. Every citizen must be on duty to ensure sacrifice and service always remain revered for the hallowed existence it represents. Warriors and cultures of old would come home from battles, and their wisdom was sought after. Their experience and knowledge was shared to teach within the community. When we come to revere the lessons our returning warriors can teach us, we do much to balm the wounds their souls have suffered. While the cause of freedom and liberty drives us to willingly accept the ultimate sacrifice, make no mistake, when we are engaged, we fight for those on our right and our left. We fight with determination, pride, focus, passion, and a resolve that anything other than complete victory we cannot live with. Gives me great pride to see the next generation step up and answer freedom's call. Young folks from USC, like Asa Gander, have taken their oaths to welcome the hour of maximum danger for the country and people they love. We can sleep easy knowing our newest Lion Cubs aren't backing down. Your presence here today is meaningful and encouraging. You honor veterans by adjusting your schedule to show regard and respect. From the starving troops, Valley Forge, to the doughboys in the muddy trenches of France, to our warriors in the jungle of Vietnam, we remember and honor all of you. Thank you all for joining today at this wonderful memorial we are lucky to have in our community. I actually encourage you to go around and read the names and perhaps talk to some of the commissioners to gain some insight on the significance of the layout and all the material and the information that this park represents. And I apologize, but not really. I'd like to close by saying when I first visited, and now as I'm looking here, it's not lost on me that the monument occupying the most prominent position in this memorial belongs to the United States Marine Corps. Hoorah! Thank you.
And as we conclude our time together today, we want to once again say to all the veterans with our undying thanks that your sacrifice is met with our eternal thanks. To you, we will remember all of those veterans who have gone before, and for everyone who is gathered here today, I would like to extend a blessing to you now. If you would please bow to receive this blessing. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you and bring to you and to all of us his everlasting peace. Amen.
Last words are, thank a veteran for his service.
That was not me. But I love your shoes.